Referendum Commission confident of delivering. Kidney specialist in town for 4 days. And Church is new Hunters coach.
This is National EMTV News with Meriba Tulo.
A very good evening. Thank you for joining us. This is Tuesday's news. The Bougainville Referendum Commission is confident of delivering a successful referendum for the people of Bougainville. In a media update this afternoon, the BRC's Chief Referendum Officer provided an update on progress towards the official commencement of polling this Saturday, which will see over 200,000 registered voters vote for the autonomous region's political future. With just 3 days until the start of polling in the Bougainville referendum, the Chief Referendum Officer has expressed optimism in delivering a successful referendum exercise. Flanked by commissioners of the Bougainville Referendum Commission, Mauricio Claudio said the BRC was hugely confident in a successful poll. With a backdrop of voter enrollment figures which showed an almost equal number of men and women who registered to vote, the CRO was confident that given the willingness of both men and women in enrolling for this exercise, the voting process would face little difficulty.
I'm also happy to report that the roll for the referendum has been completed, and it's inclusive also when it comes to gender. We have a satisfactory gender balance. In fact, the gender distribution of that roll for the referendum is better than previous rolls ever used in elections in Bougainville.
His sentiments echoed by BRC Commissioner Rugby Mirinka.
To mention that we had 206,000 voters enrolled for the referendum, of which 105,000 are men and 101,000 are female. And we believe this is it's going to be credible referendum delivered for the people of Bougainville, and that people of Bougainville must respect the process by ensure that it is free, fair, safe, peaceful conduct of referendum, that every Bougainvillean will enjoy the process of voting.
According to the BRC, the level of transparency in this referendum has been world-class. With this to continue into the polling and counting period, with observers, scrutineers and media, both domestic and international, provided an opportunity to see how this process unfolds.
The referendum is also the most transparent electoral process ever undertaken in Bougainville. There is a wide range of provisions for scrutineers, observers, and the media to witness and monitor the process all along.
And whilst the security of the referendum has been a sticking point, the BRC is confident that through constant dialogue with the Bougainville Police Service, Bougainville veterans, and communities, the risk will be minimum.
We believe largely that this referendum will take place peacefully and in an environment which will allow the will and the voice of the voters, of the people in Bougainville, to be expressed at the ballot box.
Voting in the Bougainville referendum begins this Saturday, November the 23rd, with counting to start December the 8th and the writ to be returned to the Governor-General on or before December the 20th. Team members of the Observer Mission from Transparency International PNG are ready to begin the mission on Bougainville in the coming days. Members of the Observer Mission to the Bougainville referendum concluded their preparations in Port Moresby today. According to TI-PNG Deputy Director Yambari Ihaihue, similar to recent observer missions for PNG elections, the TI-PNG team will only observe the polling period from November the 25th to the 29th. The role of observers in the referendum is to provide a critical role in the democratic process by observing whether the conduct of polling and counting is free, open, transparent, democratic and fair. Following the observations, TI-PNG expects to publish an independent public report by February 2020.
For the
purposes of this exercise, Transparency International will only be observing the polling. This is similar to what we've done previously for the national elections, and that will be to do with just the polling station setup and voter experiences while casting the vote at the polling station. There are other observer groups that might be able to observe the counting process, and that is a separate process as opposed to the polling observation, which is what our team in Buka and Arawa will be doing next week.
Our role is very much an observation role, and part of the training that our observers are receiving right now speak to that. So we will go across with a well-developed team. We do not have a position, of course. It's the decision, and the referendum will be the sole discretion of the people of the autonomous region of Bougainville.
A kidney specialist who arrived in the country yesterday will be visiting certain hospitals and clinics to make assessments and to teach health practitioners on patient care. Dr. Ghazali Ahmed is a nephrologist, a medical doctor who specializes in kidney care and treating disease of the kidney. He is expected in the country for 4 days, imparting his knowledge on care and treatment of the kidney, since PNG lacks in this area.
His first hospital visit today was at the Papua New Guinea Kidney Foundation in Kennedy Estate at 8 Mile. Dr. Ghazali went through each patient records and explained to the doctors and nurses the do's and don'ts of patients with kidney diseases. Dr. Ghazali has published numerous articles on nephrology. Nephrology is the study of normal kidney functions and kidney diseases, the prevention of kidney health and the treatment of kidney diseases, from diet and medication to renal replacement therapy. Dr. Ghazali from Malaysia has contributed immensely to the study of nephrology. He says currently Papua New Guinea does not have a specialist to treat patients with kidney disease.
So when you go for dialysis, it's a stressful procedure, and it's a highly technical procedure that requires trained staff, and the treatment itself can cause medical complication. And if there's no immediate medical complication, in the long term there are complications that may occur that require monitoring. So in order to pick up some of those problems, the staff need to be trained, need to be aware, and the nurses need to be guided by the doctors. So likewise, the doctors need to be trained and made aware about the long-term complication of dialysis, in addition to the short-term complication that may be obvious when the patient is on treatment.
Dr. Ghazali says the government should look into sending some nationals overseas to learn more about specific diseases instead of depending too much on non-government organizations.
We have a potential and dedicated professional who are, from my observation, are interested to give the best to the population here. So it's important for the system to recognize this individual, provide opportunity for them to excel, to develop their interest, because these people are the asset of the country. They will come back, they will stay back here, and they will use whatever skill that they have for the betterment of the society.
Following his visit to the Kidney Foundation Dialysis Center, Dr. Ghazali also visited Port Moresby General Hospital. His trip to Papua New Guinea was made possible by the Papua New Guinea Kidney Foundation Board of Executives after seeing the need for health specialists to educate locals and raise awareness on the care and treatment of kidney disease. Michelle Stephen, National EMTV News.
This is National EMTV News. We'll be back with more right after these messages. Welcome back to National EMTV News. People in Garambon and Ewok of Wantuat in Makam district now have easier access to basic services with the completion of 2 new footbridges. Locals faced many challenges in the past trying to access services. Some even died along the way.
These are the people of Garabong in Lerong Wantuat in the Makam district. They are situated in a terrain so rugged that access to basic services is almost non-existent. This bridge is what links them to the outside world, and for years it has been a lifesaver, at least for some. And the locals return the favor by mending the bridge every week to outstand floods. Therefore, a footbridge is a very big deal for locals here.
Planti time mibla karim ol kopi go, planti time mibla karim ol sikmani go, sikmeri time ol karim baby na inunap mibla sa making bed na karim go na samla time wara tasol making na ol mama sa lusin life long all. But now mibla looking mo sa mibla giving praise lo God osem aninit lo mari lo God now mibla mibla sa nabim bridge putting bridge go na mibla sit down on the belly.
The footbridge is funded by the Makam District Development Authority at the cost of 100,000 kina. Another completed one is the Awok footbridge at the same cost. There are 6 other similar bridges still under construction in the same area.
I can get road through them. It will still take time for me to build roads to those places. But for connecting those villages and those places that is struggling, I have to do some simple things like building footbridge across dangerous rivers that they've been crossing, and many people lost life crossing those rivers.
Also accompanying the Makam MP was Bulolo MP and leader of the newly launched United Labour Party. The party leader was there to support Mr. Iguan as a fellow party member.
And as you can see today was the first time for United Labour Party to be engaging with a members district, and we were very happy to go back to Makam, and we also very happy to explain to the people why we changed and what happened, and people accepted it, and I understand that, and I'm very happy for the support of my 9 members, and we're looking forward to pick the party up.
Meanwhile, locals are hoping such initiatives will extend to other areas such as roads and health services. Charlene Airy, National EMTV News, Ley.
Residents at Nature Block in Garbo in Port Moresby were visited by representatives from the National Capital District Commission yesterday to hear firsthand the need for clean drinking water. Management for the settlement to suburb concept, Vincent Pianti, says while electricity, roads and infrastructure are on the list of things needed, water is essential for all.
Searching for water is not something new for settlement residents who are very much aware of how difficult and tiring a task it is. Several electorates in Port Moresby are still facing similar challenges when it comes to finding clean drinking water. For the residents of a new community at Garbo, Nature Block are calling on their good governor Powes Pakop to help bring water services into the area for 2,000 men, women and children.
We got some lands department, we got some NCDC physical planning, all the time we go through, na mi meeting over the government's floor finish. Na anta progresla mi working ma boundary survey, lo on cost pro mi meeting, mi working boundary survey, mi working propose a subdivision plan. Now this la propose a subdivision plan, now I'm stepping inside the office floor, ceremony to Shababa, manager now Winston Piety. Anta progresla, mi meeting water straight.
Water may be at the top of the list, but that's not all. While residents here want water delivered first, they also need other services such as roads, infrastructure and electricity.
Spark, drug, okay. Light dropping, what is something? No boombox, what is something? Now by bearing, okay. One talk of governor, by bearing.
Representatives of NCDC who were present to hear the grievances of the people will brief Governor Powes Pakop of their request so that water can be delivered quickly.
Block planning, side block plan, we plan a walking one block plan, so was I'm not got road access. All get out what we plan a development plan, and must got access plan now. So I'm good news, man, I'm willing, no, I'm got title planning man will walk like greedy in a canosema. But I'm got hardly you miss, so I'm talking like giving access na canosem.
For now, it is a struggle for mothers in the area who go out to find and bring water back home for their families. Godwin Eki, National EMTV News.
A proposed copra processing facility for East New Britain Province will be built in the Lasul Binding area. East New Britain Governor Nakikus Konga says the processing facility will cater to copra coming from other parts of the province and from as far as New Ireland. The processing facility will be built following the provincial government's plans to halt all copra exports and to divert them to downstream processing within the province.
Earlier this year, Governor Konga announced the intention of his provincial government to put a stop to copra export from out of East New Britain Province. Last week, the governor yet again said the plan is going to work to bring back this colonial crop that once upon a time has driven the economy of the province.
So I would say that at this point in time, people who are exporting copra, after 2 years from now, why you stop him?
The governor says his provincial government will partner with an oil palm developer, Zen New Guinea, a Malaysian oil palm giant that is located in the binding areas of East New Britain Province. The oil palm developer will be engaged to build a copra processing facility in the Lasul binding area that will cater to copra that will be coming from other parts of East New Britain and the New Ireland Province.
Recently, we sit down with our partner, Gen Company again, and they are willing to give 3 small boats so that we can be able to pick up all the copra around Matanai down to Pomio, and they will start a little desiccated coconut factory.
East New Britain's plan to stop exporting copra follows similar pathway by Solomon Islands, where the country has halted all its copra export in 2009 after huge overseas copra markets closed down their mills and only importing coconut oil. Also, the governor says he wants local coconut farmers to be given more prominence as they don't always get the maximum benefits from their produce, prompted by the dwindling copra prices over the years. It's a workable plan, the governor says, that will bring back not only the coconut industry, but also regain the lost confidence from the people in the crop. Edwin Fidelis, National EMTV News, Kokopo.
You're watching National EMTV News this Tuesday. When we return, we take a look at stories making headlines overseas. Welcome back to National EMTV News. Turning overseas now, fears are growing of a bloody standoff to the ongoing siege at the university campus in Hong Kong. Despite some dramatic escapes, at least 100 protesters remain inside, with officials now issuing stark warnings.
Group's desperate attempt at escape from the besieged Polytechnic University. Protesters risking injury to slide down ropes and towards motorbikes ready to whisk them away. Preferable, perhaps, to this. Other attempts to leave met with tear gas and rubber bullets. Protesters know if they surrender, they'll be arrested.
We have been trying to escape since yesterday morning, but then we couldn't find a way out. I was quite desperate.
The number police have already caught is unclear. They're expected to be charged with rioting, which carries a 10-year prison sentence. And after some of the worst violence yet, officials offered even sterner warnings.
Don't test our bottom line. And if we have to respond, I believe the only option is to use deadly weapon.
Outside the cordon, a reminder of the extent of public support of what's morphed into broad anti-government protests. Tens of thousands of people packing the streets, blocking roads and provoking police to try to distract them from the siege.
We just try to do anything to help them, to save them, to let them out.
A number of underage protesters were allowed to leave under special conditions.
I have asked that the treatments for these underminers should be in a very humanitarian way.
That means no immediate arrest, but police have taken their details. Ms. Lam says around 100 protesters are still holed up in the university. She's not ruling out an aggressive response.
If the protesters are coming out in a peaceful manner, then there is no situation that sort of violence will happen.
Trying to put the onus on the remaining protesters as they approach a third night under siege.
Prince Andrew is under mounting pressure to speak to the FBI about his friendship with accused sex trafficker Jeffrey Epstein. Meanwhile, the royal's rejection of allegations he had sex with a teenager who is linked to Epstein is attracting close scrutiny.
Backlash. The Prince is panned for what he said during his BBC interview about...
The story continues to make headlines around the world. The British royal who tried to disentangle himself from serious allegations, but who appears to have made matters very much worse. In Los Angeles tonight, a lawyer for some of Jeffrey Epstein's alleged victims, and a young woman who says she was raped by Epstein at the age of 15. And in no uncertain terms, Prince Andrew was urged to step forward and tell the FBI everything he knows about the behaviour and activities of his former friend, Jeffrey Epstein.
It's the honourable and right thing to do.
But will he? The official line from Buckingham Palace is still that, if asked, the Prince would consider helping US law enforcement. In other words, there's been no change from what Andrew said on Saturday. In the interview, Andrew categorically denied any impropriety with Virginia Roberts, the then 17-year-old who claims she first met him in a London nightclub, where she said Andrew was sweating heavily. Andrew said there was a very simple reason why that could not be true.
I have a peculiar medical condition, which is that I don't sweat, or I didn't sweat at the time.
But photos have now been found of Andrew from around the same time, leaving a nightclub and looking as though he is sweating. He also said public displays of affection are not something I do, a statement which is not entirely supported by the photographic evidence. But for all the criticisms, Andrew's officials say he's determined to carry on. There is no question of him stepping back in any way from his royal duties.
To New Zealand, 3 women whose husbands were killed in the Christchurch terrorist attack will be granted residence after intervention by the New Zealand Immigration Minister. The application had been denied previously because they were not in New Zealand during the shooting.
Baby Noor E. Omar will never meet her father, but she carries his name. And so Omar is her dad. And Noor, light, also the name of the mosque. So the light of Omar. It's a beautiful name. Reema, Sanjida and her unborn baby were in Bangladesh on March 15th. And suddenly on radio, TV, everywhere, breaking news, people murdered at prayer at mosques in New Zealand. Christchurch, where their husbands lived and worked. Al Noor, where their husbands prayed.
Sikh mili aur
my husband passed away on 15th March, and at that time I felt like I'm all alone in this whole world. Media was all around questioning a lot of different questions.
And neither Reena nor Sanjida knew the answers, not for many terrible hours. Were their husbands alive in hospital or dead in the mosque? The answer, of course, was horrific. And then when Sanjida, widowed, had her baby, the prospects of life in a conservative, patriarchal society as a young mum on her own.
Many people label widows with different names and different, stigmatizations.
In the days and weeks after the shootings, the government promised compassion. But would it extend to widows like Reena, Sanjida and one other woman? Well, this afternoon, the Immigration Minister confirmed it did.
I felt that those 3 widows in particular met the criteria, really. The only issue was that they weren't in the country at the time.
Which means, as Omar dreamed, Sanjida gets to raise Noori Omar, who was a Kiwi, born here.
Yes.
Have a Kiwi childhood.
Thank you, New Zealand Sarkarke.
And yes, a smile, when so very much has been lost at last, hope and the sense of a future.
This is National EMTV News on this Tuesday. Coming up in Trukai Sports, Hunter's new coach announced and some news on the Northeast Rugby League competition. Stay tuned for the details.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. We begin with Rugby League, and the PNG Rugby Football League has announced the appointment of Matthew Church as the SPPNG Hunters coach for the next 2 years. He was among 14 coaches who had applied for the head coach position.
The PNG RFL's appointment of SP Hunters' new coach Matthew Church comes after former coach Michael Marum announced his resignation during the year 3 months into his renewed contract. Matthew Church, a carpenter by profession, has coached different teams over the years. He was the Sunshine Coast Falcons assistant coach this season before taking up the role as head coach of the SP Hunters.
Originally started coaching at East Tigers with their under-18s and their under-20s side. Moved on from there to work with the Melbourne Storm under-20s for 2 years. Was then head coach of their development squad for a year, and this year took up the role as assistant coach of the Sunshine Coast Falcons, who had a history-making season.
There were 14 applications received, with 3 being Papua New Guineans, while 11 came from applicants overseas. An independent committee was set up to screen all applicants to submit their recommendations to the board to approve.
We felt that the team needed something dynamic to invigorate and resuscitate the club. So when the shortlist was done and the recommendations came in, we saw through Matt's CV that he brings to him not only a wealth of footballing experience, but he brings to him his networking.
Church aims to help develop and educate coaches and players about the game during his time with the SP Hunters. Taking over from coach Michael Marum will be a huge task for Church, and he's looking forward to the challenges ahead.
With that comes challenges and development issues below that. So I'm looking to work with the Digicel Cup coaches when I assume the role about education and development, not only for the players but for the staff as well. That's with the SPPNG Hunters, but also Digicel Cup level. So able to assist in any capacity I can.
Church will start the SP Hunters pre-season training camp next week Monday with 35 players to assemble in Port Moresby.
We'll finalise the squad of 35 in the coming days, notify them, and we'll do a press release about that, about who's coming into camp. From there we'll do a 4-week block till Christmas. We'll finish around the 21st, just before Christmas, and send them all on a break and give them a bit of homework to do. And then hopefully everyone comes back willing to start fresh on Monday the 6th. And then we lead into the season with 2 trial games. So we have a trial game here before the NRL against the Central Queensland Capras, and then the following week in Cairns we are playing the Northern Pride.
Elijah Levette, National EMTV Sports.
The recommendation of Matthew Church to get the job of SPPNG Hunters coach was done by an independent committee. Matthew Church has been given 18 months by the PNG RFL to bring in a succession plan for local coaches in the Digicel Cup to lift their level of coaching if a local coach is to coach the Hunters in the near future.
A lot of questions are being asked on why a Papua New Guinean was not appointed as coach of the SPPNG Hunters. The simple answer is qualification and network with other high-level coaches. According to Papua New Guinea Rugby Football League Chairman Sandy Saka, only 3 Papua New Guineans applied out of the 14 applicants for the coach's position. The rest were expatriates.
We had 14 people applied, 11 were non-Papua New Guineans, 3 were Papua New Guineans. And as I said, the shortlisting and review was not done by the PNG RFL board. It was done by this independent panel that was set up, and unfortunately, when they ranked through qualification things, they did not meet the qualifications.
The only PNG coach to make it into the top 3 for consideration was Stanley Tappen. But the independent subcommittee that was put in place to vet the application, which included Marcus Bai and Daryl Vanderveld, Director of Statewide Competitions for the QRL, gave preference to Matthew Church because of his high level of experience and his network of coaches and trainers at NRL level and QRL level as well, that can help Papua New Guinea grow the game.
One was part of the shortlist of the top 3 that came in, but Matt stood out head and shoulders above the rest because of what is done with the coaching and at that level, elite level, and also because of the resources he brings to the hunters in terms of networking.
Church is already pulling together his contact list.
On my network, yes, I've got a number of coaches who are with NRL clubs, whether they're NRL head coaches or just in assistant roles. So looking to hopefully use those as a bit of an education tool for some of our staff, if I can get our staff to go over there.
It was unfortunate that Michael Marum had to leave after an extension to his contract for 3 more years. Saka says that hindered a succession plan for local coaches.
We had a succession plan that was mapped out when we appointed coach for his second term. We couldn't complete that succession plan because he resigned 3 months into his court. So having learned from then, we worked with, we sat down with Matt to let him know that succession planning and skills transfer is very important.
But Saka and the PNG-RFL board have given Church 18 months for a succession plan going forward, with the PNG-RFL's main goal to get the Digicel Cup coaches to a level 3 NRL high-performance coaching level. At the moment, the only Papua New Guinean with that qualification of level 3 is Michael Marum.
Before Matt leaves in 18 months' time, we'd prefer that all our 10 Digicel Cup coaches had the qualification necessary to coach the hunters. That should be the PNG-RFL's plan. In 18 months' time, if our 10 Digicel Cup coaches do not have NRL high performance level 3, then the CEO and I have failed in our responsibilities.
Felix Sukina, National, EMTV Sports.
To some other rugby news, and the Northeast Sports Foundation run 2019 Disciplinary Cup heads into the knockouts this week. 8 teams will face off at the McGregor Barracks to continue their hopes of making the grand final in 3 weeks' time.
The first-time competition goes to the elimination round this weekend for the A and B grades respectively. Vice President Alan John highlights.
So this weekend will be top 8, and then we go up to semi-final and then grand final.
The Northeast Sports Foundation has been running the competition for the last 11 weeks at the McGregor Barracks in Port Moresby. The foundation is calling on the city and electorate governments to come in and assist where they can as the season draws near.
We are now calling on the stakeholders and relevant authorities to step in and play a part, and we've end this game together.
Starting off with 12 teams in 2 divisions, the final 8 will play this weekend. The association has also selected a team to participate in the upcoming off-season Ipatas Cup. Bradley Valenaki, National EMTV Sports.
Still to come in Trukai Sports, rugby and basketball abroad. Stay tuned for the details.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome back to Trukai Sports. To some rugby abroad, and Australian Prime Minister Scott Morrison has rebuked former National Rugby Union star Israel Folau, who claimed recent deadly bushfires and a devastating drought were God's punishment for the country allowing same-sex marriage and abortion. Israel Folau was sacked from a multi-million-dollar rugby contract in May after posting on Instagram that hell awaited drunks, homosexuals, adulterers and other sinners, cited Bible verses in a sermon that was posted on Facebook. His 4-year contract with Rugby Australia and the New South Wales Waratahs was torn up after he was found guilty of a high-level breach of RA's Code of Conduct. Folau likened Australia's legalizing of same-sex marriage 2 years ago and the decriminalisation of abortion in the state of New South Wales last month to the Book of Isaiah. Residents in the New South Wales bushfire-affected town of Johns River found Folau's comments offensive.
He can say whatever he likes, but that doesn't mean he can't have regard to the grievous offence this would have caused to people whose homes have been burnt down. And I'm sure to many Christians around Australia for whom that is not their view at all, and whose thoughts and prayers, let me stress, from Christians are very much with those who are suffering under the terrible burden of fire.
New Zealand's Salika Winiata has to be up there with the busiest rugby players on the planet. The Test fullback already juggling her day job with the police, some TV work, as well as looking after 2 young nephews at home. Now she's added another job to that list in what could be a world first.
A few years ago, Salika Winiata was at the Rio Olympics with the Blackfern Sevens. In a few weeks' time, she'll be returning to the Sevens circuit, but this time as a referee.
Things have happened quite quickly, quicker than I thought.
In only a matter of weeks, Winiata has gone from taking charge of schools rugby to getting her shot on the international stage.
I only started out refereeing this year. I ref 2 high school tournaments back at home and then had the opportunity to go over to the Oceania tournament in Fiji.
Her performance there enough to warrant a call-up for the Dubai and Cape Town leg of the World Series, all while still juggling her Black Ferns duties and work as a police officer.
And if it doesn't work, then something will have to give.
But for now, at least, that certainly won't be the black jersey.
My main priority is obviously to make the World Cup team in 2 years' time, but at the same time, I'm willing to take my opportunity to be on the World Series.
The Oceania tournament, a valuable exercise to build experience and confidence.
Making sure that I was running ref lines rather than player lines, nothing worse than a ref getting in the way.
But it doesn't sound like that will be too much of an issue.
I was told that I can actually afford to slow down and let the players run off, score tries and stay behind.
She's likely to become the first elite referee in the world to still be an active player at the highest level. But she and World Rugby not worried about any potential conflict of interest, with Winiata already proving she can handle the Kiwis on the field.
Yes, I'm a player, but when I'm reffing, I'm just more worried about ensuring that we've got a good, clean game of rugby.
She's more than used to taking charge of the game with ball in hand. Now she's being given a chance to prove she can do it with a whistle.
To basketball, and the New Zealand Breakers are rejecting suggestions of a culture problem running through the club. International forward Tom Vodanovic has become the latest player embroiled in an off-court trouble. He apologized today for his rowdy behavior on a flight back from Perth on Sunday evening, where police had to be called.
Being grounded by the Perth Wildcats, the Breakers season hit another period of turbulence, with forward Tom Vodanovic becoming the latest player to make headlines for the wrong reasons.
Just trying to get a good night's sleep, had a few beers, with the meal and whatnot, and then took a sleeping pill in the hope that I'd sort of get that good rest.
Instead, the alcohol sleeping pill mix led to bad behaviour on the overnight flight home to Auckland.
And just being loud and, I guess keeping the people around me awake and annoying the hostess, I can imagine. Not being quiet.
Vodanovic will face some form of punishment, likely a fine. It's been a week dominated by the club's off-court antics. Glenn Rice Jr. was arrested early on Thursday morning for an alleged assault, but One News has learned the club didn't notify the league until 2 days later on Saturday evening, before we broke the story. Rice had travelled with the team and was expected to feature, before being stood down by the NBL. The coach rejecting suggestions of a culture problem at the Breakers.
We are in a process of change and build. Obviously, it's not an excuse. Things that happen, and we're open about it, that shouldn't happen. We make it very clear it shouldn't happen.
Change that's not yet brought on court success, but plenty of attention.
How sorry I am, it's the last thing I want to do is bring a bad name on me or this club. This club's done so much for me, and in the times that we're having at the moment, it's just not an ideal situation. We're in sort of getting publicity for the wrong reasons, and we just want to win games.
We are being doubted right now by a lot of people, and it's normal. I'm used to that. My job, wherever I am, is to be doubted all the time.
Turning those doubters into believers may take some time. Stopping a 4-game losing streak against Adelaide on Sunday would be a good place to start.
And that ends Trukai Sports for this evening. Up next, a look at the weather forecast for the next 24 hours.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by Money Plus. With you always.
A look at the weather forecast for tonight and tomorrow in the southern region. Port Moresby, afternoon showers with moderate southeasterly winds at 10 to 20 knots with seas of 1 to 2 meters. Alotau can expect some rain and moderate southeasterly winds of 10 to 20 knots, 1.5 to 2 meters, and a minimum of 24, maximum of 32 degrees. Opendetta, rain or drizzle with light variable winds of 5 to 10 knots and seas of 0.5 to 1 meter. A minimum of 24 and a maximum temperature of 32 degrees. Fine and sunny in Daru with a minimum of 24 degrees and a top of 32 degrees. And Kerama can expect some light rain and variable winds. To the Momasi region now, Lae can expect some rain and light variable winds of 24 to 32 degrees. Madang, rain or drizzle with light to moderate northeasterly winds. Wewak and Vanimo can expect showers and thunderstorms, minimum temperature of 24 degrees, a maximum of 32. To the New Guinea Islands region, and Kaveng and Lorengau can expect a few thundery showers with light to moderate northwesterly winds over the next 24 hours with a top of 32 degrees. Kokopo, Rabaul and Kimbe can expect a shower or two with a chance of thunderstorms with a top of 32 degrees, and a few afternoon showers expected over the next 24 hours for Buka in the autonomous region of Bougainville with a top of 32 degrees. To the Highlands region and Mount Hagen can expect some cloudy periods over the next 24 hours with light variable winds, a minimum of 12 degrees and a maximum temperature of 26 degrees. Goroka can expect light rain or drizzle with a minimum of 14 degrees, a top of 28, and the rest of the region, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabe can expect showers with early morning fog developing.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by Money Plus, with you always.
And that's the news, sport and weather for today, Tuesday, the 19th of November 2019. On behalf of the National EMTV News team right around the country, pleasant viewing. Good night.